The world dissolved into a haze of red as the screech of tires faded into a ringing silence. I remember the smell of burning rubber, acrid and sharp, stinging my nostrils, a smell that would forever be linked to the moment my life shattered. He stood there, amidst the wreckage of my dreams, a smirk playing on his lips as if it were all a joke, as if the twisted metal and shattered glass were nothing more than an amusing inconvenience. They thought I would crumble, retreat into the shadows, but they underestimated the fire that now burned within me. If your family is your reason for living, subscribe now. 1,094 days. That's how long I'd poured every ounce of my being into building my dream. Each overtime shift felt like a marathon, my body screaming in protest as I pushed myself beyond my limits. Every skipped meal was a sacrifice on the altar of ambition, a denial of immediate gratification for a future I desperately craved. All of it culminated in the shimmering beauty of my brand-new Tesla Model S Plaid, a testament to my unwavering dedication, a symbol of everything I had achieved through sheer grit and determination. It wasn't just a car. It was a physical embodiment of my hopes, my aspirations, my future, a mobile monument to my success. Paisley, I remember thinking as I first sat in the driver's seat, you did it. Now 11 minutes. That's all it took for my brother to reduce my dream to a mangled mess of steel and regret. He had asked to borrow it, a simple request that I granted without hesitation. He was my brother, after all, family, someone I trusted implicitly. We had shared secrets, dreams, and countless memories. I never could have imagined the betrayal that was about to unfold. His words cut deeper than any physical wound, each syllable laced with a venomous cruelty that I never knew he possessed. As I stood there, dumbfounded amidst the wreckage, he started to say, "Mom," and implying that our mother would, as always, take his side, shield him from the consequences of his actions. It was a familiar pattern, a well-rehearsed dance of favoritism where he was always the favored son, and I was the afterthought. The smirk on his face widened as he anticipated the usual outcome, fully expecting to escape unscathed, leaving me to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. For years, I had accepted this dynamic, silently absorbing the unfairness, the constant devaluation of my efforts. But this time, something inside me snapped. This wasn't just about a car. It was about years of pent-up resentment, of being constantly overlooked, of having my dreams dismissed as insignificant. I had always been the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who diligently followed the rules. While he was out partying, I was studying. While he was spending his money on fleeting pleasures, I was saving for my future. And now he had carelessly wiped it all away without a shred of remorse, confident that he would once again be absolved of all responsibility. He was right, in a way. He knew how to play the game, how to manipulate our mother's emotions, how to position himself as the victim. And in the past, that strategy had always worked. But this time, he had made a fatal mistake. This time, I had evidence, irrefutable proof that would shatter his carefully constructed facade and expose the truth to everyone. I checked my phone, my fingers trembling as I scrolled through the files. There it was, the smoking gun, the digital evidence that would finally level the playing field. This time, everyone would answer to the truth. The weight of the situation crashed down on me, heavier than the mangled metal that was once my pride and joy. I remember the taste of bile rising in my throat as I tried to reason with Mom to explain the sheer recklessness of what he had done. But her eyes, usually so full of warmth, were clouded with a familiar protectiveness. "He didn't mean to, Paisley," she sighed, her voice laced with a weary resignation that I knew all too well. "It was an accident." Accident. He was street racing. I knew it. I'd seen the videos he posted online, the late-night boasts, the reckless disregard for safety. This wasn't some unfortunate mishap. It was a deliberate act of stupidity, fueled by arrogance and a desperate need for attention. But trying to convince her was like talking to a brick wall. Her loyalty to him was unwavering, a bond forged in childhood and reinforced by years of him playing the role of the vulnerable, misunderstood son. I could feel the familiar sting of injustice, the crushing weight of being perpetually dismissed. I was on my own. Sleep became a luxury I could no longer afford. The image of my car, twisted and broken, haunted my waking moments and invaded my dreams. Every time I closed my eyes, I was back at the scene, the smell of burning rubber filling my nostrils, the sound of shattering glass echoing in my ears. I tossed and turned, unable to find a comfortable position, my mind racing with thoughts of what could have been, of all the possibilities that had been so carelessly taken away. The financial implications of his actions loomed large, casting a long shadow over my already precarious existence. The car was insured, yes, but the payout wouldn't even begin to cover the cost of a replacement, especially not the Plaid. And even if it did, my rates would skyrocket, effectively pricing me out of the market for the foreseeable future. All those overtime shifts, all those sacrifices, all for nothing. I felt like I was drowning, sinking deeper and deeper into a sea of despair with no lifeline in sight. I tried to work, but my concentration was shot. Every task felt monumental, every interaction a Herculean effort. I was a shell of my former self, operating on autopilot, going through the motions but feeling nothing. The garage became my sanctuary, a place where I could retreat from the world and try to make sense of the senseless. I spent hours sifting through the wreckage, salvaging what I could, hoping to find some small piece of myself amidst the debris. Each dent, each scratch, each shard of glass told a story, a painful reminder of what had been lost. I ran my hands over the twisted metal, tracing the contours of the damage, feeling the weight of my shattered dreams pressing down on me. I told myself I could fix it. I watched online videos. I learned about frame repair, about bodywork, about the intricate workings of electric vehicles. It was a fool's errand, I knew, a desperate attempt to regain control over a situation that was spiraling out of my reach. But I couldn't help myself. I had to do something, anything, to feel like I was fighting back, to reclaim some semblance of agency in the face of such overwhelming injustice. But the more I worked, the more obvious it became. This wasn't something I could fix on my own. The damage was too extensive, the repairs too complex, the cost too prohibitive. I was defeated. I tried talking to him, appealing to his sense of responsibility, begging him to understand the magnitude of what he had done. But he just shrugged, his eyes devoid of empathy. "Get over it, Paisley," he said, his voice dismissive. "It's just a car." Just a car, those words echoed in my head, fueling my rage, solidifying my resolve. It wasn't just a car. It was my dream, my future, my life's work. And he had treated it like a disposable toy, something to be discarded without a second thought. He continued casually, "Besides, Mom said she'd help me get a new one, maybe even better." That was it. That was the breaking point. The years of resentment, the constant devaluation, the blatant favoritism all coalesced into a single, burning desire, revenge. He had taken everything from me and he expected to get away with it. But he was wrong. So wrong. I would make him pay. I would expose his lies, his manipulations, his reckless behavior. I would show everyone the true extent of his depravity, and I would do it in a way that he would never forget. The plan started to formulate in my mind, a meticulous strategy designed to dismantle his life, piece by piece. It would be slow, methodical, and utterly devastating, and it would start with the evidence I had so carefully gathered. The world seemed to shrink, the walls closing in around me, suffocating me with the weight of my despair. I lost my appetite, food turning to ash in my mouth. The simple act of swallowing became a chore, each gulp a reminder of the emptiness that had taken root within me. I stopped going out, isolating myself from friends and colleagues, severing ties with the outside world. What was the point? They wouldn't understand. They couldn't possibly comprehend the depth of my pain, the magnitude of my loss. I became a ghost, haunting the halls of my own life, a shadow of the person I once was. The laughter of children, the cheerful chatter of passers-by, the vibrant colors of the world around me, all of it grated on my nerves, a constant reminder of the joy that had been stolen from me. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to shatter the illusion of normalcy that everyone else seemed to be living in. But I couldn't. I was paralyzed by grief, trapped in a cycle of despair with no escape in sight. The thought of simply giving up flickered in my mind, a tempting escape from the unbearable pain. What if I just ended it all? What if I just faded away, leaving behind the wreckage of my life? The darkness beckoned, promising oblivion, a release from the relentless torment. But something held me back. A tiny spark of defiance, a stubborn refusal to let him win. One night, I found myself wandering aimlessly through the city streets, the cold air stinging my face, the silence amplifying the turmoil within me. I ended up on the bridge, the same bridge where I had once stood with such optimism, gazing at the city lights, dreaming of the future. Now the lights seemed to mock me, their brilliance a stark contrast to the darkness that enveloped my soul. I stared into the murky water below, the swirling currents mirroring the chaos in my mind. It would be so easy, I thought. Just one step and it would all be over. The pain, the grief, the resentment, all of it would vanish in an instant. I leaned forward, the edge of the bridge pressing against my chest, the abyss yawning before me, and that's when I saw it. A reflection in the water, not of my face, but of his. His smug, self-satisfied grin, the look he wore when he thought he had won. And in that moment, something snapped. A wave of anger surged through me, eclipsing the despair, igniting a fire within me that I thought had been extinguished. He wasn't going to win. I wouldn't let him. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing me defeated, broken, gone. I stepped back from the edge, my heart pounding in my chest, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The darkness still lingered, but it no longer held the same allure. The spark of defiance had grown into a flame, fueled by rage and a burning desire for justice. I would make him pay. I would expose his lies, his manipulations, his recklessness. I would take back everything he had stolen from me. I turned away from the bridge, my steps now purposeful, my gaze fixed on the horizon. The city lights no longer seemed to mock me, but rather to illuminate my path, guiding me towards my goal. I walked with a newfound determination, a sense of purpose that had been absent for far too long. The world was still a dark and unforgiving place, but I was no longer afraid. I had a plan, a carefully constructed strategy to dismantle his life piece by piece. It would be slow, methodical, and utterly devastating. And it would start now. The victim was gone. The planner had arrived. The first step was gathering evidence. I smiled sweetly whenever he was around, acting like everything was normal, like his actions hadn't shattered my world. But inside, I was meticulously documenting everything. Every boastful statement he made about his street racing, every careless admission of guilt regarding the accident, every instance of our mother enabling his behavior, it was all being recorded. I upgraded the security cameras in the house, positioning them strategically to capture his comings and goings, his conversations, his every move. He never suspected a thing, too consumed by his own arrogance to notice the subtle shifts in my behavior. I even invested in a high-quality audio recorder, discreetly placing it in common areas of the house to capture any incriminating conversations. It was like playing a part, a twisted game of cat and mouse where I was both the prey and the predator. There were close calls, moments when I thought he might discover my deception, like the time he almost stumbled upon the audio recorder while searching for his charger. My heart pounded in my chest as I quickly diverted his attention, feigning interest in a television show. He bought it, thankfully, his attention span too short to linger on anything for too long. But it was a stark reminder of the risks I was taking, the precariousness of my position. One wrong move, and the whole plan could unravel. The legal aspects were crucial. I spent countless hours researching traffic laws, insurance fraud, and the legal implications of street racing. I consulted with a lawyer, posing as a concerned citizen seeking information about a hypothetical scenario. I needed to understand the full extent of his liability, the potential consequences of his actions. The lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman, provided me with invaluable insights, outlining the various charges that could be brought against him, the potential penalties he could face. She also warned me about the importance of presenting irrefutable evidence, of building a solid case that could withstand scrutiny. I took meticulous notes, absorbing every detail, determined to leave no stone unturned. I even delved into the world of digital forensics, learning how to authenticate videos, how to trace IP addresses, how to recover deleted files. I wanted to ensure that the evidence I presented was airtight, that there was no room for doubt, no possibility of him wriggling his way out of it. The more I learned, the more confident I became, the more certain I was that my plan would succeed. I was transforming myself into an expert, a master of deception, a force to be reckoned with. The videos were my leverage. He was stupid enough to post videos of himself street racing. The problem? They were always deleted within hours. I had to be faster. I created a fake social media account, posing as a fellow street racer, someone who admired his skill and bravado. I used this account to infiltrate his inner circle, to gain access to the exclusive online forums where he shared his videos. It was a risky move, but it paid off. Within days, I had access to a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. Videos of him racing, boasting about his exploits, and bragging about his ability to evade the authorities. I downloaded every video, backing them up on multiple devices, ensuring that they would never be lost. I even managed to recover some of the videos that he had previously deleted, using forensic software to scour his hard drive. The evidence was mounting, painting a clear picture of his reckless behavior, his disregard for the law, his utter lack of remorse. I felt a surge of satisfaction, a sense of vindication. The pieces were falling into place. The financial implications were a bonus. While my primary goal was to expose his reckless behavior and hold him accountable for his actions, I also wanted to hit him where it hurt the most, his wallet. I started investigating his finances, scrutinizing his bank statements, his credit card bills, his online transactions. It was a tedious process, but I was determined to uncover any evidence of illegal activity, any indication of fraud or tax evasion. And I wasn't disappointed. I discovered a series of suspicious transactions, payments to offshore accounts, transfers to shell corporations. It was clear that he was involved in something shady, something that could potentially land him in serious trouble. I documented everything, compiling a comprehensive report that I could later present to the authorities. It wasn't just about the car anymore. It was about holding him accountable for all of his wrongdoings, for all the lies and deceit that had defined his life. He thought he was untouchable, that he could get away with anything. But he was about to learn that everyone eventually pays the price for their actions. The anticipation was building. The day of reckoning was coming. The weakness was Mom. He might have been a reckless driver, a cheat, and a liar, but he was still her golden boy. She'd always bailaid him out, smoothed things over, made excuses for his behavior. She was blind to his faults, convinced that he could do no wrong. And that was exactly what I needed. I started subtly poisoning her mind, planting seeds of doubt about his friends, his habits, his late-night activities. I'd casually mention things I'd overheard, or express concern about his well-being, knowing that it would all get back to him. "I'm just worried, Mom. He seems stressed lately, and those guys he hangs out with, I don't trust them." She ate it up, hook, line, and sinker. Her protectiveness kicked into overdrive, and she started questioning him, nagging him, and interfering in his life. It was beautiful. He hated it, of course. He accused me of trying to turn her against him, of meddling in his affairs. But I just played innocent, feigning concern and offering unsolicited advice. "I'm just trying to help. Brother's name? Maybe if you weren't out racing every night, Mom wouldn't be so worried." The trap was set. The pressure was building. He was becoming increasingly agitated, desperate to escape Mom's watchful eye, and that's when I offered him a solution. "Why don't you take a trip?" I suggested casually, knowing full well that he couldn't resist. "Get away for a few days, clear your head, I'll even pay for it." He was suspicious, of course. "What's the catch?" he asked, his eyes narrowed. "No catch," I said, my voice sincere. "Just a little brotherly love, consider it a peace offering." I booked him a flight to Las Vegas, a weekend getaway filled with fast cars and loose morals. It was the perfect bait. I knew he couldn't resist the temptation, the opportunity to indulge in his favorite vices without Mom breathing down his neck. I even slipped him some extra cash, for emergencies, knowing that he'd blow it all on the tables or the racetrack. While he was gone, I put the final touches on my plan. I contacted the local news station anonymously and tipped them off about his street racing activities. I provided them with the videos, the photos, the financial records, everything they needed to expose him for who he truly was. I also contacted the police, informing them of his whereabouts and the likelihood that he would be engaging in illegal activities while in Las Vegas. I painted a vivid picture of his reckless behavior, his disregard for the law, his potential danger to the public. The stage was set. The players were in place. All that was left was to wait for the curtain to rise. I sat back, sipping my tea, and watched as his world began to crumble around him. The news story broke while he was still in Vegas. The videos were plastered all over the internet, his face splashed across every news channel. Mom was mortified, devastated by the revelation of her son's double life. The police were waiting for him at the airport when he returned, ready to take him into custody. His phone blew up with angry calls from Mom, from friends, from employers. His reputation was ruined. His life was in tatters. He called me screaming, accusing me of setting him up. "You did this, didn't you?" he raged, his voice dripping with venom. "You destroyed my life." "I have no idea what you're talking about," I said, my voice calm and collected. "I was just trying to be a good sister. Maybe if you hadn't been racing, none of this would have happened." I hung up, a sense of satisfaction washing over me. The plan had worked perfectly. He was finally paying the price for his actions, for his recklessness, for his lies. But the real fun was just about to begin. I knew that Mom wouldn't let him face the consequences alone. She would try to protect him, to shield him from the fallout. And that's when I would deliver the final blow, the one that would shatter their bond forever. I had saved the best evidence for last, a video of him confessing to deliberately wrecking my car, admitting that he had done it out of spite, out of jealousy. I sent the video to Mom, along with a simple message: the truth. The silence was deafening. Days turned into weeks, and I didn't hear from either of them. I knew that the video had done its damage, that it had exposed the true extent of his depravity, the depth of his betrayal. I imagined the confrontation, the tears, the accusations, the shattered trust, and I smiled. The final act was about to begin. The day he was due in court, I made my way to the courthouse, determined to witness his downfall firsthand. As I approached the building, I saw a familiar figure standing outside, her face etched with grief and disappointment. It was Mom. She looked defeated, broken, her eyes red and swollen. I walked towards her, my heart pounding in my chest. "Mom," I said softly, "I'm so sorry." She looked up at me, her gaze filled with a mixture of anger and sadness. "How could you do this, Paisley?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "He's your brother." "He stopped being my brother the day he wrecked my car," I replied, my voice firm. "He made his choices, Mom, and now he has to face the consequences." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I just don't understand," she said. "How could things have come to this?" And that's when I saw him. Brother's name was walking towards us, his head bowed, his hands cuffed behind his back. He looked like a shadow of his former self, his arrogance replaced by a look of shame and despair. As he passed us, he glanced up at me, his eyes filled with hatred. But I didn't flinch. I just stared back at him, my gaze unwavering. He was going down, and I was going to be there to watch it happen. But as he got closer, I saw something else in his eyes, something that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just hatred. It was fear, and not just fear of the consequences of his actions. It was fear of something else, something that I couldn't quite decipher. He opened his mouth to say something, but before he could utter a word, a loud bang echoed through the air. Everyone froze, their eyes wide with shock. And then I saw it. A puff of smoke rising from the crowd, the glint of metal in the sunlight. Brother's name crumpled to the ground, a crimson stain spreading across his chest. The world seemed to spin, the sounds fading into a dull roar. He wasn't supposed to end this way. This wasn't part of the plan. Someone else had a plan of their own. The air crackled with the smell of gunpowder and fear. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as Brother's name fell, a crimson bloom blossoming on his chest. The screams started a second later, a cacophony of panic and disbelief. I stood frozen, the scene unfolding before me like a grotesque painting. Mom shrieked, collapsing beside him, her sobs echoing through the stunned silence. Police swarmed the area, guns drawn, shouting orders that no one seemed to hear. But I couldn't take my eyes off Brother's name. His eyes were wide, staring blankly at the sky, a mixture of shock and terror etched on his face. He wasn't moving. The world had shifted on its axis, the carefully constructed plan I had orchestrated dissolving into chaos. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to face justice, to suffer the consequences of his actions, but not like this. Not like this. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, the iron scent of crimson heavy in the air. The man who took him out was lost in the crowd. Everyone was too hysterical to notice who it was. It was too late for Brother's name. The investigation was a circus. The police questioned everyone, Mom, me, bystanders, anyone who might have seen something. I told them everything I knew, omitting only my own role in the events leading up to that day. I portrayed myself as the grieving sibling, the innocent victim of Brother's name's recklessness. Mom, consumed by grief and guilt, was barely coherent. She could only repeat his name over and over, her eyes vacant, her spirit broken. The media descended like vultures, eager to feast on the tragedy. They dug up every detail of Brother's name's life, his street racing, his financial dealings, his troubled past. They painted him as a villain, a monster, a menace to society. The truth was far more complicated, but no one seemed interested in nuance. They wanted a story, a spectacle, and they got it. I watched it all unfold from a distance, feeling a strange mixture of relief and regret. He was gone, silenced forever. His secrets were buried with him, but the cost was far higher than I had ever anticipated. Mom never recovered. The loss of her son, coupled with the revelation of his true nature, shattered her completely. She retreated into herself, a shell of her former self. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped caring. She blamed herself, she blamed me, she blamed the world. Eventually, she moved away, seeking solace in a quiet coastal town far from the memories and the pain. We never spoke again. I tried to reach out to offer comfort, but my calls went unanswered. My letters were returned unopened. She had vanished from my life, leaving a void that could never be filled. I was alone. The house felt empty, haunted by the ghosts of the past. The silence was deafening, broken only by the ticking of the clock and the whisper of the wind. I had achieved my revenge, but it had come at a terrible price. The legal case against brother's name was dropped, of course. With him gone, there was no one to prosecute. The videos, the financial records, the evidence I had so meticulously gathered were all rendered moot. It was as if his life had never happened, as if he had simply vanished from the face of the earth. But I knew the truth. I knew what he had done, what he had become. And I knew that, in some way, I was responsible for what had happened to him. My quest for revenge had unleashed a chain of events that I could no longer control, leading to a tragic and irreversible end. I was left with the wreckage, the guilt, the knowledge that I had played a part in his destruction. The satisfaction I had craved never came. Instead, I felt a deep sense of emptiness, a profound sadness that threatened to consume me. The crimson on the ground faded. The sirens stopped, but inside the stain remained. I sold the house, severing the last tie to my former life. I moved to a new city, seeking a fresh start, a chance to rebuild. But the past followed me, a shadow that lingered in the corners of my mind. I tried to forget, to move on, but the memories persisted, haunting my dreams, tormenting my waking hours. I realized that revenge is a double-edged sword, that it can consume you, leaving you hollow and broken. It offers a fleeting moment of satisfaction, but the long-term consequences are devastating. It's a dark path, a dangerous game that should never be played. But sometimes when the injustice is too great, when the pain is too unbearable, it feels like the only option. It wasn't sweet, but necessary. They lost everything. I just smiled. Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more justice.